I am so excited to talk to you about some really important stuff we have going on at the school. This whole event has kind of started as a student-driven desire to really share culture. I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit together about some possible misunderstandings and pitfalls that could maybe come out of this.
So I will just before we get into the actual dialogue, I just want to say congratulations to the school, congratulations to the Black Leadership and Advisory Council on all their hard work, and congratulations and thank you to Miss Albin and Miss Collins and to Sue and to everyone who I know has been working behind the scenes to make the day a reality. So I know it's going to be successful, and I'm looking forward to hearing about all the good things that happen.
So we're going to be watching 3 different videos today: Just Mercy, Hidden Figures, and The Help. And as we kind of thought through what we wanted to come out of this, we kind of acknowledged that we're going to be talking about history, and history includes some really terrible, demeaning, hurtful, awful, terrible things. And that's hard to look at.
Right.
We particularly wanted to kind of be careful to discuss some of the nuance with the language that is possibly going to come up in these videos, and make sure that we've clarified, with the N-word and any other slurs that we've kind of taken a stance with Bishop Canevin, make sure it's not confused that, okay, well, if you said you can't ever have this word or this slur, and then you show us this video, like, what's the difference?
Right. I appreciate the question. So to your point, racism has been alive and well in this country for a very long time. Many would argue that this country was founded on racist ideas and beliefs. I would say that when we watch movies that depict the period during which Africans and African Americans were enslaved, and up through whether it's Reconstruction all the way up through the Civil Rights Movement and beyond, when we hear the N-word, it is used, and obviously a lot of this is very real footage, right? So we are reminded of the devalued state of Black people in this country historically. And I think that is the only, if I'm using these films as a teaching tool, it's to help students understand the conditions as they existed at that time. So use of the N-word, use of other racial slurs remind us that in many ways, Black people were seen as less than human. And so, for me, that is the only use of that word that I will recognize as a Black man, that I'll recognize. In other words, if I hear that word in the Eyes on the Prize is a very famous, well-known documentary series, and you see real footage of some of the things that were happening during the Civil Rights Movement and before, and some after, where you hear the N-word. And I've shown that documentary, I've watched that documentary, and I understand and share with my students. You're going to hear some things that help you understand a day and age where people could walk up to you and just call you that or say that word and nothing will happen, because everybody used it. I mean, many people use that word. And that is the only context within which, I allow that word to be used in my presence. Certainly in my class, I control the use of that word. I'm never going to say that word. My students aren't going to say that word. And there's several reasons why. First of all, I was raised by a man. My father was born in Daytona Beach, Florida in the 1940, in fact. And growing up as a Gen Xer in the 70s and 80s, I heard many stories about what it was like to grow up in the segregated South. Those stories involved young Black men and women being called the N-word as though that were their name. One of the ways that we devalue people in society, in particular Black people in this country, is by not saying their name. So in some of these films, students may hear someone say boy, right? Or the N-word. That is a strategic tool used to devalue an individual, but really a group of people. The danger of using that word back then, but I'll start with back then, is that word does not represent who we are as Black people. It doesn't. We are the descendants of a very rich people with a great deal of nuance, a great deal of beauty, a great deal of royalty, some of the greatest creators, scientists, philosophers, artists, are our ancestors from the motherland of Africa. So when people use the N-word, when they don't call you by your name, that sort of puts an X in all of that and says, despite your rich history, despite the fact that the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Swedish, the British were all in what we now would say is Ghana, but back in those times would have been known as the Gold Coast. They were all there trying to get minerals, gold, and everything else from that area. So even the area in which Africans were living was rich, held a great deal of value. So to devalue a group of people by using a word that doesn't even describe us, to me, makes no sense and takes us back to a time when people saw us as being less than human. I also would point out that we're living in a time, the post-George Floyd era, that is characterized in many ways by the slogan, Black Lives Matter. If our lives matter, then we don't demonstrate that by calling each other using a word to address each other that demonstrates that we don't matter. And so I have a lot of problems with that. I certainly understand that we hear that word used in hip hop pretty regularly. I like to think that those artists are expressing themselves and might be in many ways sharing about their lives, maybe how they feel they're being treated. I know it goes beyond that. And so I won't listen to music that uses that word. So I just, in every aspect of my life where I'm trying to ensure that I'm pushing back on stereotypes as a Black man with a PhD who's doing work in the realm of anti-racism, I'm not going to go backwards and go against everything that I'm saying. I have no problem sharing with anyone, including Black people, that we don't need to use that word. Another reason that I push back on that word is because people don't own language. So if people are going to use that word, they have to know that other people are going to try to use it too. The easiest way we can get people to stop using that word is for us to stop using it. And in addition to stopping the usage of the word, highlight the fact that we matter, highlight the fact that our lives are of value, and help people to really understand who we are as a people. The way we get people to understand who we are as a people is to first know ourselves. We have to understand who we are as Black people. Certainly using the N-word takes us in a different direction, the wrong direction, in my opinion. And so, I typically would refer to young people as young king, young queen, because that's who I see us as being. I don't see us as being the N-word. I don't see that. So there are several reasons why I am a staunch advocate of us throwing that word away once and for all. I recognize that in some spaces, and even in the Black community, people use that word and people are trying to reclaim the word and repurpose it. And I certainly hear that. And in some ways, I've been engaged in several conversations around it. I simply do not agree. Again, part of it is the way I was raised and what I heard growing up and what went along with that word, the way my father was treated, the way his friends were treated. I was not there. And so I cannot say that I saw this happen, but I do, wake up each morning knowing that word was probably in many cases the last word that some of our ancestors heard before they were lynched or before they were killed in other ways. So I don't see any repurposing, rebranding. I just don't see that word as being something that's appropriate in our community, in the Black community, and certainly not in any other community. Black people do not own that word. It's a word that should be done away with, as I said, once and for all. And quite honestly, I'll be glad when this particular debate is over. So I'm not sure if that came off as strong, but I intended it to come off as strong. If it didn't, I did something wrong. So I just wanted to say that.
I agree with that. As I hear what you're saying, I'm just thinking if what we're supposed to do is see the image of God reflected in the people that we sit across from, exactly. We can't ever be demoralizing, demeaning, minimizing. I appreciate your perspective and you sharing. I guess I have one other question. What do you think, where should our minds be as we're starting to open ourselves up to these videos to try to learn from them?
I think, as I understand it, the Day Away is designed to engage in various aspects of Black culture, Black community, Black history, Black excellence. And so I think beyond the movie, there appear to be several opportunities for people, all people, to engage in from different vantage points. If you don't know a lot about the Black community, this can be your invitation to engage and to ask questions respectfully and to understand that in one day, similar to the way we view Black History Month, you're just scratching the surface of a much deeper, much more nuanced and detailed experience. And so a day away, Black History Month doesn't give you all that you can have, but it can certainly be your starting point to beginning to understand a different type of existence, perhaps than your own. For individuals who are close to the Black community, but perhaps are not Black, it is a chance to dig deeper, to understand a little more, to ask some clarifying questions. Hey, I understand, I know some things about the Underground Railroad. I have other questions though. For many people, they think that, the Black community is all about Martin Luther King and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and, suffering and slavery. And certainly those individuals played a huge role and continue to play a huge role in the community, as did slavery, the institution of slavery and human trafficking. But I would also add that there's a great deal of celebration and cause for joy and resilience in the Black community. That is what the community celebrates. When I think of a day away, I think of a celebration. In many communities, when we think about the celebration, we do have to stop and think of the times, pause to reflect on what our ancestors went through to get us to where we are now. There's a specific tint on the Black community, what that experience has been like, because enslaved Africans weren't brought here looking for the American dream. They didn't arrive at Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. They were brought here against their will. So that changes the entire dynamic and the entire story. Yet and still, there are many, many, many things that we celebrate. And so for people who don't know that or think, it's a solemn time, there are some solemn periods that we think of or events that we think of, but there's also celebration. There's also cause for joy. There is resilience and there's Black excellence to learn about and for people to wrap their minds around. So I think narrowing it down, when we talk about the movies, I think it's important for people to think about an existence other than their own, for non-Black people to think about, hey, this may not depict my reality, but it's a reality that I have Black friends. If I go to school with some of my peers are Black, it's an opportunity for us to understand the experiences of others. And what happens to your friends indirectly impacts you. And so it's important to understand the history. Why are certain words offensive? Blacks distrustful. There's a lot of history to know. There are a lot of incidents that Black people can point to and say, that was a problem, that was a problem, that was a problem, and therefore I feel this way. So Black people are justified in a lot of the feelings they have toward this country, despite the fact that progress has been made in certain respects. There's a lot of progress that has yet to happen that Black people have fought for and will continue to fight for. So I think keeping an open mind, if you don't understand all of it right now, that's fine. Hopefully this is an invitation and this guides you to continue thinking about and asking questions respectfully about the Black experience. It gives you some type of foundation to think about why many Black people have a problem with what happens in today's society. So, while Black people are resilient, there's a lot of frustration with why things haven't changed. So I would just say I would ask students keep an open mind, to watch with interest, to think about follow-up questions that they might have, to ask instructors who are going to be engaged, perhaps students that I know are going to be involved, the BLAC is going to be sharing their thoughts and their experiences. I would ask that they respect the BLAC and students that stand and are assisting them, because it takes a lot to share your experiences when people could say, sorry that happened to you, I'm going on, and that can be hurtful. So I would hope that students would take the time to visit with them, to listen to their presentations, to ask questions, to engage, and hopefully, have a sense of empathy for what has happened historically and what, the things that students are talking about and what in many areas of their life they might still be working through and dealing with. Again, shout out to the BLAC and Sue and everybody involved in what I know is going to be an amazing day. I'm extremely thankful and extremely excited, and I look forward to hearing all about it.